Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Tuesday, May 20th. Just talked a little bit about Notre Dame, USC. If that rivalry ends, I'm going to be pretty upset, not going to lie, but we're going to move on. We're going to talk now about some guys that I think could bounce back after some rough 2024 campaigns. I wrote Breakout. I was supposed to write Bounce Back, but we're going to talk about that. That's all right. We're going to move on. One guy I think is definitely at the top of the list is going to be Carson Beck, quarterback, not of the Georgia Bulldogs, but of the Miami Hurricanes now. This is a guy that, as a first-time starter at Georgia in 2023, really had a terrific season. Completed 72% of his passes, had 9.5 yards per passing attempt, threw for 3,900 yards, had 24 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions as well. And really only kind of a controversial decision from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee left Georgia out of the Final Four team playoff in 2023. Georgia was really good. Carson Beck was really good too for them. But you go to last year. Last year, not so much. Carson Beck, he really kind of struggled in some marquee matchups, tossed 3 interceptions in losses to Alabama and Texas, also threw a trio of interceptions against Florida, only had 186 passing yards in a loss to Ole Miss and Oxford, and didn't really have a great half against Texas in the SEC championship game. Before an elbow injury ended his season, Gunnar Stockton came in for the rest of that game and then started against Notre Dame for the Bulldogs. So Carson Beck, this was a kid that really came into 2024 with high expectations, projected first-round draft pick in a lot of really early mock drafts for the 2025 draft. But he's at Miami now. He's got an opportunity to command a different offense. It's going to be more run-heavy. One that's going to have a potentially elite blocking unit. I think this is going to be a really great offensive line for Miami. And as long as this kind of revamped passing unit meshes well, it's going to be a big question for Miami. Had to replace a unit that had a lot of veterans, especially Xavier Restrepo. Kind of brought in a mixture of transfers and young guys to remake that room. It's going to be interesting how the chemistry goes there. But as long as they can kind of mesh, Carson Beck gives them a stable quarterback, an experienced quarterback, and a guy that could really perform better in the ACC with maybe a little less expectations than he did have at Athens. This is a guy that has the talent, really had a great 23 season, struggled last year, but retooling, kind of refocusing, this could really help Carson Beck and could propel him to a strong 2025 season. I think it's certainly very possible. Another guy I'm looking at is KC Concepcion, wide receiver at Texas A&M now. So this is a guy that's kind of already had an interesting journey. During 2023, breakout star at North Carolina State. He was a freshman then, showed off his versatility, had 71 catches, 839 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, and also had 320 rushing yards, averaging almost 8 yards per carry, and once also throwing a 17-yard touchdown pass. So all of that production made him a second-team All-ACC selection as a freshman. North Carolina goes 9-4 in 2023, as their team performance dipped in 2024 to 6-7. So did KC Concepcion's. He only had 53 catches, had 460 scores, 6 touchdowns, only managed 36 yards on 19 carries, so didn't have the same success in the backfield either. But now he's at Texas A&M. He's at a place where there's going to be other options. Mario Craver also coming in from Mississippi State, going to help him have some other options there. And the presence of Marcel Reed at quarterback should help them. He's going to be the top target here. He's going to be in a more talented offense in Texas A&M and should have a stronger year. This is a guy that has all the talent in the world. He showcased it as a freshman. Will he kind of be able to come back up to those rankings, to that standing in 2025? I think a lot of it's going to depend on Marcel Reed, on how he performs as the quarterback there for the Aggies. But this is a guy in KC Concepcion that's a really elite weapon, a guy that can do a lot of different things for the Aggies and should be featured this year. I certainly can see him bouncing back to those 23 levels and having a really strong year for the Aggies. Another guy I'm looking at is Harold Perkins Jr., edge, LSU. Now, this is a kid that, if you turn on his 2022-2023 tape, is an absolute freak. He dazzled as a true freshman in 22, had 73 tackles, 14 of those for loss, also had 8.5 sacks. He carries that into next season, has 2023 numbers of 75 tackles, 13 of those for loss, 5.5 sacks. So kind of dropped off a little bit, but both years, second team All-SEC for kind of that performance. Last year, LSU kind of struggled out of the gate, and they didn't really have a position for Harold Perkins. Kind of didn't know where to play him, how to utilize him. So we kind of struggled through the first month of the season, then tore his ACL, which ended his season in September anyway. Now, Harold Perkins, fully healthy, he's going to go move to what LSU calls their star position. It's kind of a hybrid linebacker DB type role. So in theory, this is going to allow him to really have more freedom, kind of as a roaming playmaker, be able to move around the field, do a ton of different things. It's going to make it more difficult also for opponents to block him, to use a lineman to block him downfield instead of a receiver or a tight end. So getting those mismatches on the edge, where he's able to kind of shed those lighter blockers easily, give him more roaming ability, more plays to make impacts. I think that really is going to help Harold Perkins. It's going to help the LSU defense as well. This is a guy that's got all the talent in the world. I'm excited to see what he can kind of do in this new star position. I'm excited, though. Tacario Davis, this is another kid. DB, now at Washington. So, reunited, and hopefully feels like a bounce-back season. This is a guy that's the hope this year. In 2023 at Arizona, he was an honorable mention All Pac-12 choice on that Jedd Fisch-led Arizona team. Yielded only 5.4 yards per target in coverage, according to PFF. Then 24, Jedd Fisch goes from Arizona to Washington, and Tacario Davis, along with pretty much everybody else on Arizona's roster, really had a down year. After giving up 5.4 yards per target in 23, gave up 9.3 yards per target this season. So entered the portal after the year, goes to Washington to reunite with Jedd Fisch and his former secondary coach in John Richardson. There's no question that they have a plan to maximize his impact. This is a kid that's a 6'4" cornerback. He's long, he's athletic, he's really talented as a man press corner with natural tools. Sometimes he gets caught peeking, gets out of position, but if this is a guy that cleans up his technique, his ceiling is super high. And reuniting with Jedd Fisch with his secondary coach should really help him clean up his technique. A guy that can get back to that 23 level, a guy that has all the tools in the world. I would expect him to really have a great year for Washington as one of those corners for them. Then, another quarterback that I had that I was kind of thinking about is Kaidon Salter. Now, Kaidon Salter, transferring to Colorado after being at Liberty throughout his college career, hasn't officially been named the starter, still technically in competition with Juju Lewis, but this is a kid that's the veteran in the room. He's the favorite right now at this time. As for how he's going to do, it's going to be difficult to figure out. Are they getting the 23 version, or are they getting the 24 version of Kaidon Salter? That's going to be the big question for Colorado. In 2023, 61% completion percentage, 2,800 yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, also rushing for 1,000 yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. Then, this past season, 24, 56% completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 15 touchdowns, still 6 interceptions, only 580 yards on the ground, and 7 touchdowns. So, which version will they get? And then you also got to consider he's replacing Shedeur Sanders, has Julian Lewis in the background, kind of hovering as that 4-star, 5-star freshman. This is a Colorado team that's got a bunch of eyeballs on them. This is going to be a guy that, can he step up in the spotlight? Going to have more talent around him at Colorado than he did at Liberty. Has a really strong offensive coordinator in Pat Shurmur, a dynamic head coach in Deion Sanders. How will Kaidon Salter do? Will he kind of get back to those levels? Can he regain his confidence, regain that playmaking ability? I think he can. I think this is a guy that really has a strong ceiling and a guy that's experienced but still can get back and learn and kind of develop some of those tools that fell off from last year. But Kaidon Salter, definitely another name to watch out for as a bounce-back candidate for the 2025 season. So we're going to take another short break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about, could there be no more noon Ohio State games? We're going to discuss it when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.